Hey everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Kitty. On my channel, I do like to do scary stories. I also do vlogs when I can, live streams about anything and everything, stories of my personal life, traumatic stories, dating stories. I have a whole playlist. I also do makeup related and shopping related videos. So if there's something there for everybody, make sure to subscribe to my channel right now. As you can tell by the title, today is a scary story. The way it works for the newcomers here is that my subscribers, aka you, my friends, will email me your typed out stories. I read them and narrate them here on my channel, and we get to all enjoy these scary stories. So make sure to follow the instructions at the very end on how to do that. But for now, let's get into the first story. This first story comes from the Lummi Nation in Bellingham, Washington. She says, "Hello, Kitty. You can call me. I'm from Lummi Nation in Bellingham, Washington, born and raised, but I'm also Mohawk from Six Nations in Canada, Colwitz and Blackfoot. I heard about you from a colleague who listens to the stories you tell on your channel. One day she played your channel during lunch, and now we listen to your channel regularly at lunch and while we work. I keep saying to my colleagues that I'm going to send my stories, so I guess now I'm finally getting around to it. I have a few stories for you, some long, some short. These stories are my own, and they are true from my own experience. They all come straight out of Lummi Nation. My ex-husband, we'll call him Todd, was a fisherman, so we owned a few boats. One of the boats we owned was Purseiner boat. Girl, I have no idea what kind of boat that is, but you guys have money if you guys have boats, huh? We had it docked at the harbor in Port Angeles, Washington. The harbor that is what it was getting shut down, so we had to relocate the boat to another harbor in Bellingham, Washington, which means we had to drive it to Bellingham from Port Angeles harbor ourselves. I had about 3 years clean and sober at the time, but Todd was still using. He was not in a good place and had a couple of active warrants for his arrest. One thing, though, that was really unfortunate with him is bad things would tend to follow him around. It would always seem like when he thought he was getting a little bit ahead, something bad would always happen, and nothing could ever just go right for him. I watched him struggle like that for years. Him and I decided to stay the night on the boat. The day we got there, it was really late and dark outside. The boat was super big. It had a bedroom that had like 5 beds in there, and there was a whole built-in kitchen. This was actually my first time being on this particular boat. I was really surprised at how big it was. I remember walking down towards the docks to get onto the boat. Everything was all kinds of dark and spooky. We climbed into the boat. It was massive. As soon as we got there, I was looking around, kind of excited about being on the boat. I seen that Todd decided to start fixing his stuff to use right away. The stuff he used was the kind he injected himself with. Then I heard him say something really strange to me. He said, "Dang, either I just did a whole bunch or that stuff was just really dark." And he looked at me and laughed and said, "We'll find out." After I started noticing him nodding out, his eyes started to roll behind his head. I could tell he was starting to OD. I kind of propped him up. I told him, "Look at me, stay with me." But then he kept falling back. At this point, I started to get scared. I started slapping him across the face, telling him to stay with me. I was slapping him hard. His eyes still kept rolling to the back of his head, and then they came forward. He would start to look at me. Then I noticed he started looking to the side. I started to tell him, I'm right here, stay with me. He looked at me, then looked sideways to the corner of the room, and he goes, did you effing see that? He started crying and jumped up and took off running. He ran all the way into the kitchen, and I grabbed him. I sat him down on the couch. He was crying, sobbing like a baby. He is not the type of person to cry, especially not like a baby. I've never in my life seen a grown man cry like that. I sat him down, and his eyes started to roll back of his head again. He started screaming, they're trying to take me. They want me to go with them. I kept telling him to stay with me. I'm right here, you just need to stay with me. But his eyes kept rolling in the back of his head. Then they would come forward and start to look to the side again. He had a look of pure terror on his face. When his eyes started to roll back this time, he started smiling. Ew! He started smiling and nodding his head yes. I was freaking out because I was losing him right in front of my eyes. I started shaking him, telling him to wake up. Then his eyes rolled back. They looked at me for 1 second and then started to look in the corner again. At this point, I'm crying my eyes out, and I just keep slapping him over and over, telling him to wake up and stay with me. He did it several times, and it seemed like forever. Then he finally grabbed my hands and stopped me from slapping his face. He says, I'm completely conscious. I look at him not sure and terrified. He said, there was 2 of them. They wanted me to go with them. They were trying to take me. He goes, they were smiling at me like this, and he smiled at me. He was smiling every time his eyes rolled back, but this time his eyes weren't rolled back. He was nodding his head yes, like how he was doing when he was unconscious. I think they were possessing him. Every time his eyes rolled back in his head, they were like taking him over. He said that I was the only thing that kept him alive, that I saved him. I wasn't there. If I wasn't there, they would have took him. He said when they finally stopped, they went all the way to the ground, bounced off the ground, and then flew all the way up to the ceiling, and then flashed out the window. I asked him, what did they look like? He said they looked like white people. They had white skin, blonde hair, blue eyes, and they were both male. I told him I wanted to leave the boat. I didn't want to be there another second. So we got up and started walking towards our truck. I seen a black shadow and my heart jumped. I got scared. I was so scared I was going to see them myself. When I looked, it was only my own shadow. I was really terrified. I kept trying not to look at the windows because I was scared that if I looked at them, I would see them staring back at me. I was completely traumatized from that point on. Later on, I was teasing him, even though it wasn't funny. I told him, I see white people. I believe that they were reapers, ghosts, or spirits of some kind that bring people to the other side. I also believe if I was not there, he would have unalived. I sometimes think what would have happened if he did unalive, and us being by ourselves on that boat. I had no one to help me. I felt so helpless, and we were the only ones there on the whole harbor. Not a lot of people stay at night on their own boats. I think, what if I would have seen them too? It's scary to think about. To this day, I have never seen them myself, and gratefully so. After all of that happened, I tried to hide Todd's bad stuff that he was using from him because I was scared he was going to do that to himself again. I probably should have threw them away, but I didn't. I was scared he'd be pissed because he would have gotten sick. Right away, he wanted his stuff again and wanted to do more. That was terrible. I was upset, but I just gave them back to him. As far as the boat, we had to go back to drive out of the harbor, which I was terrified and didn't even want to set another foot on that boat. When we went back, we ended up making it all the way to Seattle, just me and him. When that boat broke down, it got towed to Seattle Harbor, and that didn't dock our kind of boat. They wanted some crazy fee, like $1,000 a day, in order to have it there. When it broke down, we couldn't fix it, so it got impounded and we ended up losing it. That's what I mean by bad things tend to follow him around. Thanks. Hope you enjoyed. Wow, that was crazy. I think that's the first one that was sent regarding bad habits, like drugs. And I have a similar story on my scary story playlist. If you haven't seen it, make sure to go check it out. I'll try to link it somewhere right here for you. When I first started telling scary stories, I started with my personal scary stories or stories that I know, like from friends or family members. Because as a Native American growing up on the reservation, there was just so much paranormal stuff that went around that it was kind of almost normal. And when I moved out here to the city and was around non-natives, I was by this time I was already fascinated and just interested, and I would try to like tell scary stories to people, and they would look at me crazy, like, like they didn't understand. They didn't grow up around none of this supernatural stuff. And so I feel like as natives, we see these things, we feel these things, we know somebody who has seen or gone through certain paranormal stuff, and I just feel like it's normal for our culture. And anyway, when I first started to tell these stories, I shared a story about something similar like this that happened to me when I was abusing alcohol. And if you guys are interested, make sure to go watch that video. It's on my playlist. I'll link it right here, the video that I'm talking about. But this is the first one I believe we have received with this type of storyline. I feel like when they said it was like white entities, or they looked white, I feel like demons or any dark spirits can manifest themselves to look a certain way, and I kind of felt like they were trying to portray themselves as, like, dare I say, angels, but I feel like it's very common, and I always think about these stories of people from my own neighborhood who have unalived themselves due to drugs, and or people who are coming off these drugs, and they tell their stories of what they see, and a lot of it is demonic. If you really listen to these stories, a lot of the things they see are demonic, and it's creepy. So yeah, what I was told is that and I'm pretty sure I said this before on here, is when we are not our true self and we use substances to, how do I not think clearly, these entities, where we open ourselves up for these entities it's easy access for them to come into us. And so that's why you hear all these stories about these types of things happening when you're doing bad stuff. So I would not doubt it. Thank you for sharing your story. Let's get into the next one. Hello, Kitty, how are you? Thank you for telling my story and sharing it with your subscribers. This story was something that made me feel scared to tell it. I swear that every detail I wrote is true. I'll do my best to give every detail. First of all, this story happened on April 26, 2012 in Caris, Zozo, I am so sorry, New Mexico, at my grandparents' house. They have a ranch with cattle and livestock in the old barn. My grandparents called my parents and I to stay with them to visit. I asked if I could bring two of my friends, and they said yes. We went over to pick up my friends and head out to go visit my grandparents. We ended up decide to stay for a week since my friends were staying over too. We were told that there were chores that had to be done. My friends and I led around the ranch and the barn by my grandpa and were shown how to take care of feeding, watering, and cleaning up the pens and stalls. After a while, my friends and I finished up and headed back to the house. It was around 5:47 p.m. and the sun was starting to settle down. We walked back. One of my friends, Henry, said, "Do you hear that?" My friends and I stopped and listened to what sounded like heavy hooves stomping. My grandpa had a huge Clydesdale stallion named Buck. He was gentle. I then said, "Henry, it's just Buck pacing around." We calmed down and were about 15 feet from the house. We heard something coming from the barn. We stopped again and heard one of the goats getting riled up as a strange dark shadow darted out into the surrounding area by the sage bushes. My friends and I didn't think anyone saw it, so we went to go check it out. As we approached the gate, my grandpa came out quickly with his arms out, blocking us from going in. He then said, "Don't go in there. There's a big mess in there." I can see the fear in his eyes as we backed away. I noticed my grandpa's large male goat was tied up to the lone post. I told my friends to go inside and that I want to see what's got Grandpa scared. But then my grandma yelled for me to come inside as it was getting late. The time was around 6 p.m. I got inside. I stepped inside. My grandma had a huge bushel of sage and a small bottle of holy water. She then said to us, "Don't stay outside long. Something is unaliving our cattle and horses. Just last week we had found our horse unalived, eating apart, and the two halves of him were found in two separate areas of the ranch. At this time, my parents were resting up in the upstairs room. My friends were at the dining room table, eating stew and fry bread. I watched from a nearby window to see what was happening as my grandpa was cleaning up what seemed to be hay covered in coagulated. I wanted to help, but my grandma was strict about this sort of thing. She stood next to me and gave me some small sprigs of burning sage and told me to sage down, so I did. The late evening came. It was now around 7:30 and everyone was laying down except for Grandpa. He stood up at the dining room table, pondering something while mumbling and cursing. I couldn't sleep, so I snuck out into the living room and walked up to him. In his gruff voice, he said to me, "Shouldn't you be asleep, kiddo? I'm working on something." Most people or kids like me would take that as a sign to get lost, but I know something is bothering my grandpa. Then, unexpectedly, a big truck pulled up into the driveway that belonged to my uncle. He came inside with my aunt. I was surprised and hugged them both as my grandpa stood there, saying to my uncle, "We got to do something about Jasper." I looked at Grandpa as we suddenly heard what sounded like heavy hooves about 17 feet from the house. The goats were bleeding. He went back outside to the barn with my uncle close behind. My aunt and I looked at another. Not long after my grandma came in, she was wearing a thick robe that kept her warm. She was surprised and told me to go back to bed, but I wanted to see what was going on. Everyone else was asleep except my grandparents and my aunt and uncle. I decided to stay up. My grandpa and uncle stood at the back of my uncle's truck, loading up their rifles. They quickly loaded, and as I went to sneak out the back door, I quickly headed to the barn when I suddenly smelled blood. It was fresh. As I walked and stood at the bottom step, I heard a goat bleat loudly. It wasn't a normal yell. The time was around 11:20. I was outside walking towards the barn where I could smell where the blood was coming from. I then see something hunched over in the doorway of the barn. It was old, pale, and it seemed like a naked human. I couldn't think straight at the sight and sound of flesh ripping, the bones breaking. This humanoid thing was hunched over, eating something. I suppose it heard me trying to sneak over, and it turned to face me. This old witch with dark, shark eyes and an unnaturally long, wicked smile turned to face me with blood dripping from its mouth. I froze. I couldn't speak or move. All I felt was like the color drained from me, and my heart was pounding on my chest. I wanted to call for my uncle and grandpa, but I couldn't. I watched as it stood up 9 feet tall, thin with long dark hair. This thing was accompanied by two very dark shadows, like the ones my friends and I saw earlier in that day. I was frozen. I finally thought to myself, I have to pray. And so I started the Our Father and closed my eyes tightly. I felt this thing walk to me, stand right in front of me, the scent of thick blood mixed with death. And I pray. As I was praying, I imagined this holy image in my head of Jesus in the manger, Jesus standing with Mary, Jesus on the cross, and finally Jesus coming out from the tomb, standing there with the punctured wounds on his hands and feet, looking at me, smiling. I took a deep breath and yelled, Amen. Then suddenly, as quickly as I saw it, this thing left. I quickly walked into the barn to see with my flashlight what it was doing. I couldn't believe what I saw. It was the head of the crow chewed up with the remains of a newborn baby goat, ripped open, and its innards sprawled out into a pentagram. My heart dropped as my uncle grabbed my shoulder, and it scared the absolute crap out of me. I grasped and stutteredly trying to find my words. But then my grandpa came behind my uncle and said, That bastard child of Lucy has come back. My uncle and I looked at each other, and before I could say anything, Jasper came bursting in through the door. He charged at my grandpa. My uncle pushed him out of the way and took a shot at Jasper. My ears rang at the gunshots that were fired, and I looked around. Jasper disappeared. We all looked around, and there wasn't any other openings he could have went. So we were shook by this. We quickly searched the barn top and the bottom before deciding to leave the barn. Just as I was calming down, we heard another loud bleating of the goat. My grandma and aunt came outside and asked what was happening. My uncle quickly told them, and they were worried. My grandma locked all the doors and windows except the front door, so my aunt got into my uncle's truck and headed into town to see if there was anyone who could bless the barn and the ranch. My parents got up and checked if my grandma was okay. She explained everything going on outside. As I walked around with my flashlight with me, I searched for wherever the sounds were coming from. I found where it was coming from, the empty horse stall. I walked over to it and noticed a red handprint on the door. I quietly peeked in, and I see Jasper in there, chewing on something. It sounds like the same as the witch when he chewed, so I quietly snuck around to see what it was, and I nearly screamed. In his mouth was a dead newborn horse, all bloody, and there were symbols written and drawn all over the walls and stalls. He was eating the innards, and the mother horse just stood there like nothing was happening. My uncle called me from afar. but I motioned to him to be quiet as I was pointing out that Jasper was in there. My grandpa came over to us as well. They both saw what I seen and were terrified. I called quietly to the horse to get her out by using horse biscuits and treats. I put her far with the other horses. We all noticed how Jasper was sitting, almost human. He was kneeling down on his knees and hunched over eating. We noticed something slowly creeping over the wall of the stall. It was long, black, with slender hands and arms. With eyes wide open, we stared closely at this thing. It suddenly darted back wherever it came from, and you can hear a guttural screeching yell from the other side of the wall. Jasper looked up and turned to us standing there. As I took a few steps back, my grandpa and uncle stood side by side, lifted their rifles in firing position, and I turned and ran out. I darted back inside and fell to the floor as my family gathered around asking what's wrong, what are they doing. My body collapsed from the adrenaline wearing off in me. I lay on the couch looking up at the ceiling, praying that God will take away this evil that lurks around the barn and ranch. Afterwards, I finally knew what my grandpa was talking about, the bastard child of Lucy. He meant a demon sent from Lucifer, the devil himself. As the night turned into a blur, I woke up around 10:30 and I seen my uncle and aunt stayed as well. They stayed in the guest room. I went to the table where my grandparents and mom were making breakfast and talking. I asked Grandma, "Where's Grandpa?" She told me he's in the front yard cutting wood. I went out to see him. As I approached him, I see a thick burlap sack with red stains on it sitting on the ground. I looked away, not wanting to be remembered of what went on last night. I nudged Grandpa aside a bit, saying, "Good morning." He smiles exhaustedly to me, and I stand there next to him. As we stand there, I bring him some sage to bless himself. He turns to me and says, "This stays between all of us. I don't want you telling anyone." He said sternly, as I can tell he was serious. I nod, promising not to tell anyone, but my grandpa has long passed, and I thought I'd share this story with you all. I swear on my life, this truly happened. Ew, that's creepy. That's like probably one of the most descriptive and scary. That was creepy. That's scary. And she said this is by Carrizo, New Mexico. Carrizozo. I'm so sorry. That's crazy. Thank you for sharing your story. Definitely gotta pray after this. I think we're gonna call it for this video. If you guys want to send in your story, make sure to email your story. It could be your story, it could be your grandparents' story, it can be anybody's story, as long as it's nice, and it doesn't have to be super long, but as long as it has details and it's a good 3 minutes long, maybe, that would be perfect. If you have an elder around you that has a story but they cannot type and you want to type it for them, please do that, because we do need stories. All you have to do is type it up and email it to WhatWouldKittyDo12@gmail.com. I will get to it as soon as I can. Thank you for your patience. Happy New Year. I hope you guys are starting off your new year in the best way you guys can. I am trying to reach my goal by staying active and be more mindful of my time and spend time here with you guys again. So I hope to see you guys more often. Don't forget to get this video a big thumbs up. Don't forget to hype the video up, down. There's a little hype button down there that it just pushes my video out to the algorithm. And we want to get more stories from different reservations. If you have Bruja, any kind of little people, Bigfoot, UFOs, Haitian stories, any kind of Mexican scary stories, Native American scary stories, we want to hear it. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next video.